topics.
What is up, plant people? Hey, yesterday was Thanksgiving. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving for my friends in the U.S. And for everyone else, hope it was a great Thursday. So today's Friday, the 27th of, November? Still November? Yeah, still November. And we're back with another episode of Planthropology, this time a special bonus one. I'm Vikram Blegi, your host, and normally we talk about the lives and careers and stuff of other really cool plant people. But today, since it's a bonus episode, you just get me, and we're going to talk about Christmas trees. So, let's play some music, and then let's get into it. Okie dokie. So, Christmas trees. Now, I realize that we have listeners all over the world and of various faiths and creeds. And so, I just want to tell you today about the way that I celebrate Christmas. My family celebrates Christmas. We always have. And if you don't, that's totally rad. We're going to do an episode next week, another bonus episode about plants used in holiday traditions all over the world and in a variety of faiths and cultures. But our tradition growing up, and even still to today, to a certain extent, was that we would put up the Christmas tree the day after Thanksgiving. We'd all get together on Thanksgiving. We'd eat way too much food, enjoy time as a family. Obviously, this year was a little different, but we would unpack all the Christmas stuff, get it down out of the attic, out of the shed, and get ready to decorate. So we'd get together Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and we would eat way too many leftovers of food that we enjoyed the day before and get miserable and way too full again. And then we would put up our Christmas tree and our Christmas decorations. Now, my parents have had theirs up for quite a while because they were like, it's 2020. We're retired. We do what we want. And so I'm pretty sure their Christmas tree's been up since like September. But we'll probably do our Christmas tree here at our house with my wife and my son. This weekend. I don't know if we'll do it today. My wife has to work. But this weekend, we will probably get all that up. So let's talk about Christmas trees. So Christmas trees are a very old tradition that really did not start in Christianity. Now, the modern Christmas tree and the modern way that we decorate and celebrate it, to a certain extent, does come out of the Christian tradition. But the use of evergreen trees and plants in winter celebrations goes back all the way to the Egyptians. We see it throughout time in Egypt, in Rome, in China, and in places all over the world. It's part of Norse tradition as well. And what we see is that the evergreen tree, usually pine trees, fir trees, really any evergreen plant, was a symbol of immortality throughout cultures and throughout time, as they stay green all year. And you have to understand that we, at least in the Western world, I'm aware that it's not this way even today, everywhere, but we live a food convenience kind of lifestyle, right? When we want something to eat, when we want vegetables, when we want fruits, we go to the grocery store, we pick them up, we bring them home. In the past, and again, in some parts of the world, even today, they eat seasonally. So whatever they could not grow in season and whatever they couldn't package and preserve and store, they didn't have through the winter. So the winter solstice, which is in the Northern Hemisphere, December 21st into 22nd, are the shortest days and longest night of the year. And in a lot of traditions, they would celebrate that day because it meant that the days would start getting longer and they were getting closer to spring and to being able to plant and have food again. So from Saturnalia in Rome, and the celebration of the god Saturn, to the Egyptian god Ra, to Norse gods, we had all these traditions that took, living evergreen trees, brought them inside or decorated them or celebrated them outside on the winter solstice as looking forward to spring and celebration of the life that was to come and the food that was to come in coming months. A lot of these traditions held that the summer gods, the sun gods, would start to lose power and grow ill. And that's why we would get winter, right? They couldn't I guess, maintain summer anymore. So they were ill or they were tired. And Saturnalia, or the winter solstice, marked the day when they would start to regain their strength. And in just a few short months, it would be warm again. The ice would thaw and they'd be able to plant stuff again. Now, in Christian tradition, there's a lot of thoughts about the origins. As Christianity moved through Europe specifically, a lot of Norse tradition got mixed into some of the Christian lore. So as they moved through, especially England, Europe, Germany, where a lot of these early tribes and early peoples were, they started to see that these trees were being used in these rituals. And so it kind of got worked into Christianity and the whole story and the whole idea of Christmas. And our modern Christmas tree that we see today really, we think, goes back to German traditions in the 16th, 17th century, where they would have these very popular, actually even earlier than that, there were very popular medieval plays about Adam and Eve, where they would use a paradise tree. And usually this would be a fir tree that was hung with apples. They put apples on the tree that would represent the Garden of Eden. And paradise trees were generally set up in German homes on December 24th, which was a religious feast day for Adam and Eve. And they would hang wafers on it to symbolize the Eucharist and the body of Christ. And then later on, that would become cookies and different kinds of candies. And there's a story that the reason that candles and lights were introduced into the trees, that Martin Luther was walking home one night and looked up at the stars and saw all the stars, and it was almost this winter celebration, this Christmas celebration. And he thought, well, this would be nice to have inside. So he got some candles, brought them inside, and they would hang like live, fiery, lit candles on Christmas trees. Probably not real safe. So over time that evolved. And of course, with the advent of electric lights, that's what we started to see on Christmas trees. In places like China and Japan in the East, they would make intricate, beautiful paper decorations. As Christmas and Christianity was introduced in the 19th century and maybe even a little bit earlier, these paper ornaments, these beautiful handmade intricate paper ornaments, would be hung on the trees. And they symbolize a variety of things. Lights could be Christ's light in the world, or just like the stars, or a reminder of the universe, or however you want to look at it. But the fact of the matter is that Christmas trees have been used, or holiday. Let me say that again. Let me say that differently. Christmas trees are used commonly today, but trees and other evergreen plants have been used again throughout time for religious and cultural celebrations. So that is a very, 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 very brief overview of this whole tradition, right? There's a lot that goes into it. This is going to be a short episode. I don't want to talk about this for half an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. But do some research on it. If you're interested in where some of these traditions come from, this is worth looking into. It's really pretty interesting. So let's talk a little bit about what kind of tree you should buy. So if you're the Christmas celebrating sort and you want to get a Christmas tree, there are a lot of options out there. Generally, either a live tree was decorated outside, or a tree would be cut down and brought inside, usually a fir or a cedar or a pine of some sort. But now we have plastics, right? So there's lots of artificial trees out there. And growing up, we always had artificial trees, and my parents still keep a couple of artificial trees in their house. But personally, I'm a fan of fresh cut Christmas trees. That's usually here in my home what we normally do. In fact, I may go pick one up today. I don't know yet. I'm recording this on Friday morning. I'm sitting here eating pie for breakfast, leftover pie for breakfast, and drinking coffee. But I may go pick up a Christmas tree today. So again, you have a lot of options. And the big three ones that we normally look at are fresh cut trees, real trees that were alive, that were cut down, that you put inside. Live containerized trees, which in some places is becoming more and more popular. Or, maybe a live tree that's planted in the landscape that you just decorate outside. and then plastic or some kind of other synthetic artificial tree. And there's pros and cons to all of these. So let's start with the plastic tree, because I think that has been billed over the past, since plastics were invented, I guess, as the more like ecologically friendly option. Oh, buy a plastic tree. It lasts forever, right? You can keep it for 30 years and you can use it over and over again. And you don't have to cut down a Christmas tree. And I see where that argument comes from. But the, I guess, skeptical, sort of cynical side of my brain is like, they just want to sell more plastic trees, right? So I don't know. I think that they have a lot of good benefits, right? You can use them year after year. You don't have to rebuy a tree every year. And there is some benefit to that, right? It's maybe they're not too expensive, but to get a really nice one, it may be a little bit expensive up front, but then you can use it for, until it falls apart or until it gets so gross that, you can't use it anymore. Yes, plastics do break down over time and they will kind of deteriorate, or if they're in the heat or the sun, they'll still be plastic, but they may not look as good as they did. But they are a petroleum product, right? So they are a non-biodegradable, non-renewable resource product. So yes, you don't have to cut down a real tree every year, but you're adding eventually more plastics back into the system, right? Eventually, that tree is going to get thrown away. It may be 20 years. It's not a single-use plastic by any means, but eventually it's going to get thrown away. And then it's there forever, right? Not forever, but for a long time, because plastics take a long time to biodegrade because you want them to be durable. That's the whole point. They are not supposed to start breaking down quickly. They're supposed to last for years. So I like the look of them. You can get some really, really nice plastic trees that look very real, and they have different kinds of decorations on them. It's kind of nice to get them pre-lit sometimes, so you can just plug them in and put them up and not have to worry about it. But personally, like I mentioned, I like fresh cut trees. So as a tree guy and as a plant guy and as someone who is very, conscious of the environment, or as much as I can be, people look at me kind of funny when I say that. But let's talk about a tree farm, right? So a Christmas tree farm is planted specifically for that purpose. Those trees were put in the ground to eventually be cut down and sold as Christmas trees. Now, there's an argument to be made that if you're going out in the woods and logging the biggest Douglas fir and cutting it down and bringing it home, that's a problem. But for most of us, we're not doing that, right? We're either going and cutting down our own tree at a Christmas tree farm, or we're going to Lowe's or Home Depot or somewhere and buying one that's already been cut. I don't have a problem with that. So it's a biodegradable resource. As those trees are planted and grown, they're sequestering carbon. Even though they're planted for the purpose of being cut down, they're pulling carbon from the atmosphere and locking it up in Christmas tree. So you're essentially using a completely renewable resource in your home, and then it can be used for something else after. A lot of times the dry branches, the small branches, can be used as like a fire starter for your fireplace. You can mulch the tree and use it in your landscape. You can make ornaments out of it. You can do all kinds of things that cycle that resource back into the environment. Maybe not burning as much, that, releases CO2. But as long as you're not just like sending that tree to the landfill, which a lot of landfills, they mulch those trees and give them back out anyway. You're contributing to the environment by using a fresh cut tree. They're grown for that purpose. They're really pretty sustainable. Most of the time, they're fairly water use efficient. Pine trees tend to be fairly drought tolerant, and they grow them in places that they are well adapted. Usually, you're not going to grow like a blue spruce very well here in Lubbock, Texas. You can grow an Afghan pine, though, an Elderica pine, perfectly well, and that makes a pretty good Christmas tree. So I'm a fan of that. And then again, at the end of the season, I like to cut mine up or try to mulch them or do something else with them and use them back in the landscape and put them back in the environment. Your other option is to get a containerized tree. So a lot of times you'll see these as either fully containerized or ball and burlap, 6 to 8 foot live living pine trees that you can put the container in your living room, water it, give it fertilizer, all those things, keep it alive for the month or whatever that you keep it up for Christmas, and then you plant it in your yard. Over time, if you do this year after year, you're going to run out of room for trees in your yard, just practically speaking. So what I've seen some people do is that they'll buy them for 2 or 3 years and then either get a fresh cut tree or just decorate trees outside and do something else inside for their presents to put presents under or just to have in the house. So you have a lot of options. The benefit here is that you're planting another tree out in the environment, right? It's grown, again, for that purpose, but it ends up in your yard, in your landscape, maybe in a friend's yard or somewhere else. And it does what trees do. It cleans the air. It makes us happy. It sequesters carbon. All the benefits of trees get really brought into our Christmas tradition that way. I'm a fan of that. Sometimes they tend to be very expensive. You know, you may be spending a couple $100s easily on a nice quality tree that's going to survive on the landscape. Also, sometimes they're not cared for well when they're inside. They still need some light. They still certainly need fairly regular water. Now, you don't want to keep them swimming, right? Just keep the root ball moist. Make sure you get some light and some nutrients, and then it should be fine. But in those cases, you really need to stick them like under a skylight or by a bright window or something like that, so that they can keep living long enough for you to put them outside. I kind of like the idea of having a Christmas tree that I just decorate out in the yard, and then either do a fake tree inside or a little fresh cut tree inside, just so that I still have that traditional feel. But I know that the big tree in my yard is my Christmas tree, and there's always a story that goes along with that. There's also other options, like you can just do like a tree made out of just Christmas lights, or some people are even doing like wall decals or metal trees or all kinds of other stuff. There are lots of options, but again, for me, for my money and for my family, I usually choose a fresh cut Elderica pine. Again, they're very sustainable and they're grown for that purpose. So it's really up to you. If you celebrate Christmas, you know, you'll make a choice on a Christmas tree, and all of them are perfectly acceptable. It's just whatever you like and what you feel like growing. But I hope you all had a really wonderful Thanksgiving. Again, if your Christmas tradition is to put up your lights and your stuff the weekend after Thanksgiving, I hope you can listen to this as you do that and get a little joy out of it. I just want y'all to know again how grateful I am for all of you. It was just Thanksgiving, and I've been thinking a lot about, in this weird year, the things that I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful for the show, and I'm grateful for those of you who listen to this show and comment on social media and give me feedback and have become really such good friends through this whole process. Y'all are the best. I love you so much. Follow on social media. We're all the places: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Check out my other show that I'm almost done. Well, so my other show that I started for Napod Pomo, where you post a podcast a day. I've got super short episodes on a podcast called The Plant Prof. You should check that out. After November's over, I've just got like 4 more days of having to do this. It'll go to a weekly show, and it'll be a companion to this one, where I can talk in a little bit more detail about maybe a concept that a guest brought up, or just keep answering your questions and rambling about whatever I want to, like I have been for this whole past month. But again, y'all are great. If you want to support the show, hit us up on Patreon, patreon.com/Planthropology. No pressure to do that. Just if you want to support us, that's great. Oh, one last thing. A merch store is up. So go to Redbubble and check out Planthropology. I think it's just redbubble.com/Planthropology, but I'll post a link in the show notes. You can get our cool new logo, again, designed by Beth Nichols, who was our last guest, on all kinds of stuff, from a mug to a tumbler to a t-shirt to a sticker or anything else you want. And also, I'll be adding some new designs. We're going to have some fun stickers and stuff with pull quotes from some of the funniest episodes and some of the best episodes, like Hallie Casey's saying, "Well, that's a real pain in the asparagus." Yep. Anyway, again, y'all are rad. I appreciate you hanging in there with me over this past year, and I'm really looking forward to what 2021 has to bring for all of us and for Planthropology. You're wonderful. I hope you have the best holiday ever. I hope this is a time that you can find a way to find joy as you go through it. And next week, we'll have an episode on, again, holiday traditions involving plants throughout the world. So y'all are awesome. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.